Good morning. Hope everyone had a nice long start of summer weekend. Thank you for joining us. I guess I see nobody wanted to go to their office after a holiday, so you came to So Loco. Well, thank you for joining us. To start off, I started something new, which it only took me 8 years to figure out. But I asked the clerks to give a brief summary of the previous meeting, so we have a record of the minutes. I hope the board got a copy when you got the agenda. And if anyone is not getting the agenda, please see Miss Noriega in the back there, and she'll make sure you get on the list. And there's also a sign-up list for anyone from the general public who wants to be on a regular distribution. To please put their name up there, and you'll get a regular notice of the meetings. So just briefly, last meeting, we had a report from Kevin Icard from Bluffton on the new town ordinance regarding wetlands. We had a proposal from Tom Lennox on a task force proposal for the committee, and we had a growth planning workshop proposal by Rob Merchant of Beaufort County. And also, lastly, we had an update from the plastic bag survey by Mr. Rob Merchant as well. So today's agenda, we're going to start off with the Tom Lennox 20-year regional plan proposal that he gave to the committee. Tom could not be here, so I'm going to read his report for him. The task force was born out of an initiative of the GIC Regional Committee to recognize the importance and scope of Lowcountry issues being dealt with by the regional local governments and how the various approaches and solutions are interrelated. It was quickly realized that there were several organizations that have input on these issues, and that of those, So Loco may be the most appropriate to align with a project to design a structure for regional planning. This structure or outline would help provide continuity for local governments, large and small, urban and rural, and large buckets and small, to participate in solutions to issues that have no political or governmental boundaries. We all recognize how critical transportation, workforce development, education, stormwater management, public safety, and affordable housing are to our quality of life. Hence, the mission of this task force, working as a subcommittee of So Loco, is A, to create a structured, inclusive, and adaptable framework that enables diverse stakeholders to collaborate effectively, align priorities, and address regional challenges. This task force was commissioned as a subcommittee of So Loco April 22nd, 2025, and has met 3 times. We have reviewed the following: mission, initial draft framework outline, elements of local government comprehensive plans, 11 elements of our region in 30 years presentation made to So Loco in 2024, industry segments, and factors considered necessary for a healthy regional economy. Beaufort County and BJWSA sponsored So Loco Regional Growth Strategy Overview. And lastly, draft AI-assisted framework outline. We have also recognized other organizations and plans that have a regional focus and the responsibility to understand that work and responsibility. Those organizations are as follows: So Loco Regional Growth Strategy Subcommittee, Lowcountry Council of Governments, LOCOG, LATS, Beaufort County Industrial Development Authority, South Carolina Development Alliance, Beaufort County Atlas, the 2024 Comprehensive Plan, Beaufort County Connects 2021 Plan. We have met with Taylor Logan, Planning Manager of BJWSA, to review their work to date and determine what strategies and tactics they anticipate in using in preparing their plan. Their goal is to work in collaboration and create products that are complementary. We shared our early draft outlines, and Taylor felt they could use our work in developing their growth strategies. Future meetings of the task force will be focused on further understanding of local comprehensive plans, priorities, capital improvement project plans, and regional organizations' mission and jurisdiction. So thank you, first of all, thank you, Tom and his committee, for working on that. If you recall from last meeting, one of the things we asked Tom Lennox and Rob Merchant's committee to eliminate any duplications on what they were working on. So that's the update, and I'll have this sent out to everybody. And also, I think they've shown that this is something apart from whatever Rob is going to propose in their outline. And do you agree with that, of course? Okay. So any questions on that? I know that was a mouthful, but I'll make sure this gets sent out to everybody. Any questions? Personally, I think that this task force is a volunteer task force, and it can only bring forth some benefit. And I for one, think that we should adopt them and encourage them and see what they come up with.
I might add that the Economic Development Corporation probably should be part of that group as well that they work with to understand where the county's moving in that direction for development.
Okay, that's a good idea. I know they wrote down here Beaufort County Industrial Development Authority. I don't know if he was referring to that. Is there, Chairman Kemp, is there any entity from Jasper County that was not included in this? There's a lot of Beaufort County. Is there any entity that we should tell that task force to coordinate with for Jasper?
I'll talk to Tom afterwards.
Okay, so if there's any coordinating entity, I think we should add that to the list as well.
Mayor Williams?
Yes.
I didn't hear the Northern Regional Implementation Plan Committee. NERC.
Okay, I'll add that as well. Any other agencies that this task force should coordinate with? Carlton, I know you had sent me something, and is there anything that should be coordinated with?
We believe that it should be, Mayor, but also in addition to the Silicon Garden, primarily here today, 2 school districts, Jasper and Beaufort County. Beaufort County is spending $813 million over 10 years in facilities and developments, and we need to make sure we place those facilities where the growth is. So we think that'd be beneficial if you are so inclined.
So coordinating with both school districts, that's probably a real good idea, a real good idea. Any other thoughts? Tom's going to have to add a few more members to that committee. All right, thank you. And again, thanks to Tom and whoever's on that committee. I think there's several people in the room that are part of that committee. Thank you for your work on that. Next, as I said in the minutes, we had heard from Rob Merchant, and he proposed a workshop, which the group, if we decide, would hire a consultant. So we asked Rob to come back with more specifics to that suggestion today, and I spoke to Rob last week, and I think he's ready to come forward.
Well, good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of Siloco. So if you remember, last month, April, when we were over in Bluffton and Siloco met, we gave an update. At that time, the committee had asked us to put together a work program and some numbers and a cost sharing or proposal for cost sharing if we all would agree to move ahead and engage in this process. So we did that, and there were several comments made at the last meeting that we wanted to take a deeper dive into and be able to address those. The first was kind of what we just talked about. It was coordination with this effort by Mr. Lennox and the Greater Island Committee. And as you had mentioned, Taylor Logan from Beaufort Jasper Water Sewer Authority, who I've been working very closely with in developing this proposal. She met with him, and so one of the things that I wanted to, we were looking at how the two could relate together, and I think that one of the advantages of this workshop approach is it gets the decision makers and stakeholders in the same room early on to grapple with some difficult questions for the region that we need to address. And I think the advantage of doing that first is that coming out of that process, not only do we have, it would help us further, pinpoint what issues we believe as a region are most vital that we should work together on. And possibly, if that means a more detailed joint planning effort, that could further refine what is in that joint planning effort. But I also believe that coming out of the workshop, we could have some immediate deliverables. There might be some things that we could resolve through some intergovernmental agreements, especially there's a lot of concerns about growth and land use. And so there's an opportunity to engage in this workshop early on, have some agreed upon strategies coming out of that. Some of them may lead to more planning, but some of them may lead to some sort of intergovernmental agreement or agreement for cooperation or future land use, generalized future land use vision. So I think that there's an opportunity for the two to work together, and there's an advantage in engaging early on. So one of the things about when you do a comprehensive plan, it's a long process, and often you're not getting the recommendations until it might be several years before that process is complete. And so I think having a workshop first, really focusing in what are the issues, what are some things that we could do now, and then do we want to further address these other things in much greater detail. And so I think that is the way that these two can work together. And so the other things that you asked us to do was further to refine the numbers and to take another look at if we choose population as a way to decide how we're going to, basically just, that each person, what each person's share should be in contributing to this process, to take a look at those numbers. So one of the things we concluded with population, and it's understandable that the town of Bluffton, especially the town of Bluffton and Hardyville, are growing quickly, and they might be growing quicker than the estimates, but there's really only one source that we could all draw on as an objective source for what our population is currently, and that's the American Community Survey projections. That's what LCOG uses. And so our recommendation as staff is that if we are going to use population as a basis for how to distribute the cost of this, that to use the American Community Survey, the latest numbers that they have. In addition, we spoke with we've been working with a consultant to just kind of get some general ideas about what is involved in the workshop. So what we provided here is a not to exceed, it's hard to pinpoint the number until we actually send out an RFP or RFQ and start getting proposals of what it will cost. But we're being told that a maximum of 75,000 is reasonable. We do have a breakdown of what that means in terms of the phase one, the gathering of existing policies and information, the conducting of the workshops, and then the development of the roadmap moving forward from that. So this is what we have today, and I guess for the questions of the board, how you want to move forward from this point.
Thank you, Rob. I'll open it up for questioning, what the board has up here. And there's board members not up here. Do you have additional copies?
Okay. Yeah. There might not be quite enough if you could share them.
On the flip side, on the back side of the page, are the cost share breakdowns. And of course, none of these decisions can be made by this body. We'll all collect the information and then go back to our jurisdictions, our councils, to decide whether or not they want to participate in this program. And I see that it would also, not just a financial commitment, but it is also proposing 2 half-day workshops with us all. So we're not only committing money, but we're committing to approximately 8 hours of all of our time. And if we're going to spend money and then not come and spend the time, then we're not getting everything we're paying for. So I just point that out so everybody keep that in mind. So at this point, I'll shut up, and I'm going to ask for questions from the board.
Yep, so I've got a question. Obviously, town of Hilton Head, there's not a whole lot of development area left. So I kind of look at this document and I go, maybe it should be based off of actual town size. How many acres, how many square miles, as that caveat to determine, because the growth pattern will be Jasper County, Hardeeville, Beaufort County, Bluffton, and those are the main areas that we'll see that future growth. So I think that going off of current population is kind of looking to yesterday and not looking forward. But by looking forward at land mass, you see the potential growth within those areas. And that might be a better calculation of value.
That's a good thought. If I could add to it, there's obviously there could be some caveats to that. I'll give you an example. Jasper County is 665 square miles, but the developed area is only southern Jasper County. So you may want to make, if you did that way, Jasper County would be taking on the lion's share of the cost. And that may not be what we want to accomplish, what we want to do. So maybe it's a combination of some way to take into account. I think your idea is a sound one, but also not be so rigid to interpreting the numbers.
I think it's a starting point to have that conversation as to what are those other elements that would go into that calculation to make certain that it's equal across the board. Not saying, obviously, whatever happens off in the mainland is so important to what affects us on the island. So we do get benefit from it as well, and I'm not demeaning that or dismissing that at all. So,
And that's all part of what we as a region, why we're here.
Right.
Because we all understand that everything we do individually affects the whole region.
Right.
Mayor Toomer.
Yes, sir. If I just one,
Larry, if I could ask you to please speak into the microphone because
Sure.
you are being filmed.
I just want to throw something out there that would it not be taxing the taxpayers twice because we all live in Beaufort County? I'll say we all, except for Jasper County residents. And the lion's share of our taxes, property taxes and so on, and vehicle property taxes and boats and all that automatically goes to Beaufort County. So would the residents of the municipality not be paying twice? Just, I hadn't studied this too close or anything, but that does jump out like as something, to think about, because it seems like if the town's gonna pay for it and Beaufort County, we all live in Beaufort County. I've said that so many times that, the lion's share of our tax revenue goes to the county automatically. And, whether it's an unincorporated Beaufort County or the town of Bluffton, we pay the same thing in taxes, property taxes, as anyone in an unincorporated area. Plus, we pay more for the luxury of being in the town of Bluffton, with the amenities and all that, the town operates on. So that's just a question.
A good thought, and one of the things I noticed that Rob did was he took out the population of the municipalities in both Jasper and Beaufort. So the population listed here for Jasper County and Beaufort County is minus the two municipalities. But I think it's a worthy thought that maybe Rob somehow incorporate it with all the other thoughts. We're not asking you to make any decisions here.
Yeah, and I would just say this, I believe this decision is something that Soloco should make rather than staff. I think
Right, absolutely.
what we're looking, and I will say one thing, and I certainly understand the argument that, municipalities are already paying county tax, each property owner. One of the advantages of sharing the cost of this is that everyone has some investment in the process. And so that was some of our rationale, but I will, ultimately, this is a decision, I think, for Soloco. If the board can agree on a formula or for cost sharing, if it's the desire of this board to move forward, then.
Yes, Alice.
If I'm not mistaken, the stormwater was a cost share amongst all, and the housing study was a cost share. I think, to Mayor Toomer's point, I live in the city of Beaufort and I live in Beaufort County, so we need the buy-in somehow, even if it's a lesser percentage from the municipalities.
Good point. And yes, all the previous Soloco subcommittees that required this investment were done by population.
Mayor?
Yes.
So I have a couple questions, not so much about how to split up the cost, but just really looking at hopefully the outflow of the study itself, because the study is only so good as being able to implement what it recommends. And so from that standpoint, if the goal is to develop a future land use and growth boundary tool, when I start looking at the different jurisdictions that are a part of this, you've got Hilton Head, which I think most folks would say Hilton Head's likely mostly developed. There's not a lot of room. It's a lot of redevelopment which is happening rather than new growth and development. And then I think a lot of the same thing could be said for Bluffton, in that, a lot of what's underway and what's left is already planned for in terms of being in a PDD or being in something that's received entitlements. And then go to Hardyville, same thing. We've got a growth boundary. A significant portion of our land is within a PDD that's already then dictated in terms of what the entitlements are. And then shifting north of the Broad, you've got the Northern Regional Plan, which encompasses the city of Beaufort and Port Royal, which kind of dictates what their growth boundaries are and how they're developing. And so when you look at all those component pieces, what is the real likelihood that there's going to be some kind of recommendation that comes out of this study that any of us are going to be able to adopt, because a lot of it is already really kind of set on a course that there's not a whole lot that we can do. And so I know that this really kind of started a number of years ago when the thought was, hey, we've got to stop growth. We're just growing too fast and too much. But when you sit down and you look at the local component pieces of it, I don't know how much there's still left on the table that we could influence, even if we wanted to. And so I look at it from the standpoint of what is it that we're going to get out of this study, and does it make sense to then pay to purchase that information?
I think that there's a lot, I do agree, we all have good policies. We have good local comprehensive plans, and I think that there's a real advantage to having somebody who's more of a disinterested facilitator taking all those components and looking at how they work in a region. And I think it may be that our path to what is an agreed upon future land use policy, we might be a lot closer than we think. But I still think it would be a good exercise, because I know that there have been areas of the region that people have been concerned about. The 462 corridor, the Port Royal Sound, the area along the Broad River. There are areas where I think it would be good to have a shared vision. Is this an area where we want to propose more of a preservation? Is this an area we want to target infill? And I believe that there's an advantage to do that, and there's still enough parcels in play that having that strategy in place would be a good thing for the region. And I think about even when we did the Southern Regional Plan, and it's been almost 20 years, at that time, we had calculated that all but 11% of Southern Beaufort County had been claimed in some form or another through PUD or development agreement, but we still, that exercise really was a catalyst for, we had a successful, we reworked our impact fees, between Beaufort County and the jurisdictions, and also had successful sales tax referendum, I think in 2006, or that, as a result of that message getting out about all this approved development in the future, and how are we going to address it as a region. So, I mean, I believe that if we're closer to the goal, then I think that hopefully would make it easier, but I still think that there's an advantage of this exercise. And we don't really, other than we have this group, that we don't really have an agreement when, let's say, a property is being considered for outzoning in Beaufort County or annexation, of how we share that information, or I guess make decisions, and how they might affect other people in other jurisdictions in the region. So, I think that there's a real advantage to doing it, but it may be that we're closer than we think.
One of the things that, to follow up on what Josh said, but one of the things that I envisioned when we started this is that we each have our own sets of rules, ordinances, and approaches to our growth. And what can we learn from each other? In other words, last meeting, Bluffton gave us a presentation on their new ordinance. What other things that Bluffton does that could be helpful to the rest of us, or what Port Royal does or Beaufort does that they have a different set of circumstances, but perhaps they have ordinances protecting their environment that we don't have in ours. So I thought one of the goals and one of the benefits could be if this study pointed out those areas of differences that perhaps the rest of us could learn from and adopt. So I guess my question to you, Rob, is that one of the goals, or can it be one of the goals?
Yeah, I think it can be. I mean, I think analysis of what protected resources or policies that you know, if it's freshwater wetlands or the stormwater or buffers, you know, along our rivers, you know, maybe pointing out those discrepancies and determining whether, you know, as a region, we think that they should be standard or they should be greater, or, you know, I think that those are definitely things that could be addressed in this.
There's also, besides environmentally, there's impact fees. What does one jurisdiction do to another? There are things like, you know, does Beaufort require sidewalks and Hardyville doesn't? You know, what are the differences that we can learn from each other? And that was always one of my hopes. So maybe apply that to some of our thinking. Yeah, Josh, were you about to say something? Did I cut you off?
I was just going to actually.
Wrong Josh.
I was going to build off of what Josh had said as well, because thinking back to some of the previous studies, the 2040 plan that was done, the future land use plan that was done, the intergovernmental agreements that are already in place regarding the growth boundaries. I'm trying to quantify what values come from a $75,000 expense that's not already there, and almost wonder if it would be, because to your point, Mayor, I'm not sure that we would need an outside facilitator to show us where our discrepancies are or where our neighbors might be implementing something that we may find valuable as well. I think that's going to be a collaboration amongst ourselves, and we could share that information and maybe establish a better process to where we do that. But I'm not sure we would be able to get that from a 2 half-day event with an outside facilitator. And I think a lot of the things that at least I'm hearing we're trying to accomplish with this have already been done with Beaufort County, City of Beaufort, Town of Bluffton, Hilton Head, Port Royal. You know, so maybe there's some value in better identifying areas where there's overlap between Jasper County and Hardyville, you know, and how that plays into Beaufort County's development. But I think a lot of the things that I'm hearing as far as what we want to accomplish in this event has already been done. Right? This would be basically a 2045 plan, and we have a 2040 plan. Right?
This would be an opportunity for elected officials and stakeholders to address tough questions about regional growth, which I think we all have, in some degree or another, in our comprehensive plans address, but we haven't done it as a region, and I think that that's the advantage of this.
So you're saying, so the future land use map or the growth boundaries that are in place don't do that now?
Well, I will say that Beaufort, Port Royal, and Beaufort County, in the northern part of the county, do have a shared vision that's in place. So, I mean, that is an advantage that we have.
Right, so just from the city of Beaufort's perspective, we would be paying for something that northern Beaufort County already has, right?
I believe that the whole region benefits. You know, I think the city of Beaufort would benefit if we had a better approach to growth on the 170 corridor, because residents of Beaufort commute, you know, to Savannah, to southern Beaufort County. So I think that every jurisdiction, you know, some of us already have agreements in place, some of us don't, but I think we all benefit from this shared vision. So that's why I think that it really makes sense for all of us to participate. You know, and it may be that certain jurisdictions have a lot more properties in play. You know, it might have a greater impact on the region, you know, if land is developed in the wrong way, or if we preserve a piece of land that would have a benefit to the region. But I think that we all benefit from working together.
So ultimately, could this become a process that identifies where we may need to downzone properties that have currently been zoned for higher density? Because if that's the case, then we would have to purchase that reduction in density. Is that where the goal is? to identify properties that maybe are zoned, not in our best interest now?
Well, that's a possibility, but, as a staff person to hope that the end product is that we're gonna agree to downzone a lot of land, that's a very difficult thing to do, and I wouldn't wanna have the success of this ride on just downzoning. It could be, the Beaver County and Jasper now have, good land preservation tools, so it could be further, refining where we target, whether it's, one of the things the green space program can do is buy down density within approved development. So that could be a result. I guess I'm saying as a staff person, we know that it's a very difficult political decision to downzone property, and so I'm not saying that that is an outcome of this. It could be that we agree on, in the future, where we don't want to see future growth or annexation.
I guess that's what I'm saying, though, is if you identify those areas, then those properties right now are already zoned something. And so if you say, well, we're going to identify that we don't want this to be developed because of whatever reason, how do you go about implementing that or changing what it currently is?
A lot of these properties, we might be talking about land kind of on the edges of development are zoned low density rural, in the county, or Jasper County has a low density zoning district. And if they are to develop, they're probably going to, in the future, want to increase their zoning or annex. And so it might be identifying those areas that might be appropriate for future annexation or upzoning, or those areas where we think they should stay rural or they should be targeted for preservation.
So there's obviously a lot for everyone to think about and how far they want to go. But I think that, one of the benefits of a workshop would be to help us define actually what we want to get out of this, and go forward. Because one of the things we can't do here is get into the weeds. That's not what we're designed to do. But we do need to get together and decide where we want to go. As far as staff being able to move something like this forward, Josh and I were talking this morning about a consultant. The reason you hire a consultant is because the staff, they don't have time for it. And that's not part of what, you wake up in the morning to do. You have your response. A consultant does what it adds to our staff capability. And it takes the place of staff, so to speak. So just everybody, keep that in mind as you consider this. Do we have any other comments? Please come to the podium. Anybody from out here? We are filming everything.
Morning, Mayor Williams and other board members, Patsy Bryson, also a Loco board member, Town Council member, Hilton Head Island. It seems to be where the heartburn is about the money. So I agree that it would be good to have an outside consultant of some sort, but we have a number of retired folks in our counties, and we have educational institutions. So perhaps looking at that kind of people power, we could reduce the cost, maybe the cost of the venue, unless we can find a venue that's large enough in our shared facilities to host a workshop. And maybe we have to pay for some coffee or water or something like that. But let's look at that option and reduce the cost by finding local talent who can serve as the facilitator, the mediator, whatever you want to call them. But I do agree that we need someone outside of staff, because it puts staff in an awkward position and also uses a lot of their time. And also the same for us elected officials. I can't be the facilitator, but I can be a participant. And if we have someone who can help us bring together our thoughts to put something together, maybe that's a way to consider.
We could put you in charge of that, Patsy.
Sorry, I have to talk. I left my voice in Charlotte, so sorry. I wanted to thank you all. I sat there for years and we listened and listened to all the different projects for us to really be educated. And that was really the tool for Soloco to be educated. And then we moved forward on so many good initiatives. So I think I'm speaking more to the newer elected officials. In 2009, we were in a horrible recession. Anthony Barrett, our town manager at the time, spent double this on where we wanted to be. We wanted to keep the lights on, keep staff, working because we were hitting the rock bottom of the recession in '09. So we took money and invested in a consultant there. If we use the plan, they're worth it. If we're just doing this to put it on a shelf, then let's just keep getting educated and never put it together. So I would encourage you to get a facilitator, to hire somebody. This is nothing. $75,000 for each of us and as a whole to have a growth framework map. And I'll jump back in 2009. We created a growth framework map. We didn't down zone, but we said where we wanted it. And we do get a lot of grief, but I'm very proud about what Bluffton did and where Hardyville is going to find those places. Hilton Head just did it. They did an overlay for affordable housing last meeting, and it's kind of the same thing. Where do you want these things? Where do you see these things? So I would encourage you on that. I'm actually more excited over the potential services and add-ons and maybe up your budget. Transparency is so important. Permit finders, Josh and I talked about that last week about Hardyville wanting to do that. If we had an overall interactive map that our residents can see, those are all things that lead to the next penny, that lead to the next whatever we need. So for whatever it's worth, I love this. We have 10 years we tried to get here. I hope you all pitch in. It's worth it. It's an investment. It's not a cost. So all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. I should change seats with Mayor Salka, former Mayor Salka. Anyone else from either the board or the public?
Yeah, I have something.
Yes, Mr. Hamilton.
The study is probably important, but the elephant in the room is we want to stop growth, and we're not saying it. That's the elephant in the room. So we got to figure out how we're going to face our fear with a solution. And we need to, even though we can't stop growth, maybe we can slow down growth. Maybe we can grow smarter. So let's deal with the bigger picture, and we're throwing money at it, which is something we always do, but we really need to throw science at it. That's how we going to manage growth. We becoming somewhere else USA right now. Okay.
Well, thank you. Speaking for Hardyville, I'm not looking to stop it. I'm looking to manage it. Ms. White.
Thank you. Jessie White, Coastal Conservation League. Thank you, Councilman Hamilton, for your thoughts. I think that's spot on. And the other kind of, I was thinking about how to interject into this conversation, and just based on some of the early on conversations the growth subcommittee was having, I think what we were talking about is understanding the true costs of growth. We cannot stop it, but we can manage it, and we can direct it into the places where we are best equipped as a region to handle it and to, absorb it. And then we can identify the areas as a region that we want to ensure are not turned into anywhere USA, that, have that special character. We can all agree, yes, we want to see this protected. How do we do that? What does it look like if if we do nothing? What is the do nothing scenario? And I think that is what that map that Rob had showed with the entitlements, 53,000 plus units, that is coming. And so what do we do about it is more what this exercise is supposed to be. It's not just, you know, we know that some growth will come. It's like we know a lot of growth is coming and is going to be utilizing shared infrastructure, shared roads. All of these things impact all of the jurisdictions, but it's hard to kind of wrap your head around what it actually means in terms of how it impacts the citizens of each of these jurisdictions. And so by the decision makers kind of really immersing themselves in the true costs of growth and what it means, what it will take to keep that train going in terms of the costs of services to those areas of growth. I think that's more what this exercise, what the value that you would be getting as decision makers is just making more informed choices about how to grow as a region. So I just wanted to add that as well.
Great, thank you. That's what I should have said. Should have shut up and just let you come up and say it for me. Anyone else?
So Mayor, when would be a drop dead date that we would all need to come back with this to, if we decide to go down this path collectively as all the different jurisdictions? Because when I have to go back and talk to our folks to kind of see when this will start or not start.
This is a conversation we've been having for about 2 years, so, you know, there's no drop-dead date to start working or not working. But I think the board has to decide how much time they want to come back and report. Should we can put this on the agenda in next month, in 2 months, in 3 months, and that gives everybody to go back and take the temperature of their councils, because we're an advisory board. We are not a decision-making board. So we need to get those decisions from each one of our councils. So is there, to answer that question, Councilman Rao, does anybody from the board have a suggestion how much time each of us wants to report back with some sort of decision on whether or not you want to move forward? Any thoughts?
I think 2 months, next month is just too soon.
Right,
So you
right.
obviously,
I agree.
would say 2 to 3 months, you come back with an answer. 'Cause we got a lot on our plate right now.
Exactly. I'd also like to see it, you know, relook at the estimated cost share, but also keep reading. This strategy will align land use, infrastructure, economic development, and conservation priorities across the region. I've got a little bit of a problem with that statement. We all have our directives in place, and how do we align, you know, land use? I can't tell, you know, Hardyville, don't do X or Y or Z. Right? So I think that the overall strategy and purpose of it may need to be redefined just a little bit. And it is about addressing future growth, how to manage it appropriately, as was stated. And it's all these things are in place. So what we're doing is we're creating a content aggregator to pull every municipality and county's information into one location, and then come up with a plan through Soloco that we all adopt and try to get the communities to adopt. So I think the overall purpose of it may need to change a little bit, and I don't have that suggestion right now. We have our infrastructure issues on the island, and we're talking about that this summer. There are joint infrastructure issues that we're all facing. What are they? What are the issues that we're facing with? We know that drilling is now being discussed in the Atlantic again, right? Is that an issue that we need to take up and understand? but each community and each municipality in the county have differences as to where they're looking to go and how they're going to get there. And I see this more as okay, residents, here's what's going on in our area. This is how we're going to be affected, positively or negatively. So what is the purpose that we're trying to put out there? Because if we all agree on a directive, that's just us agreeing on it. It's not the municipalities. It has no weight. It has no bearing. But this is the educational piece for everybody to understand what is coming forth. So I think a little more thought needs to go into it.
Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Dan Wood with the town of Bluffton. I too think a little more information needs to come out. I was listening to all the different parties with their suggestions and ideas, and it was a little bit convoluted. I think Jesse was touching on some items as well. It's obvious that the growth of Bluffton impacted Hilton Head, and it still is.
Right.
It's obvious that the growth of Hardyville is impacting Bluffton, okay? And it's obvious that Jasper County is going to impact all of us. So again, we have limited resources, whether it's the roads, which is only a handful in this region. We're all using the same water. We all have to build the schools, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I don't think we know the overall impact, financial impact, long range, what all of this means to each of us yet. I know that we all have our little fiefdoms where we know what we do with our own planning, but I think part of what the study was hopefully going to reveal was the overall scheme of all of this tied together collectively. I do understand what Josh was saying a while ago. Yes, Hilton Head is pretty much developed out. Bluffton's not far from being developed out. There's really not a lot of places you can buy land. But again, the pieces of the puzzle, when you keep going out, the tentacles of it all stretch universally, and it will impact everybody north of the Broad, south of the Broad, and in Jasper County. So I think we need a little bit more definition on what we're trying to accomplish with the goal. Thank you.
Anyone else? If I'll make a suggestion so we can move on. I would ask each jurisdiction to do over the next 2 months. We'll schedule for 2 months from now, but we'll review next month whether or not we're prepared. We can always push it out. So I would ask each jurisdiction, assign someone, define what you'd like to see done with this. B, come up with a recommended cost-sharing formula that takes into account population and land mass, or some other suggestion that you might have, okay? And then C, of course, will be to take a temperature of each one of your councils to see whether or not this plus or minus formula of cost sharing you have an appetite for. If the council says, hey, Beaufort County says I don't want to spend $15,000 either way, then at least we know. But Rob Merchant, all the work that he's done, deserves an answer, and we need to decide one way or another after a couple of years how we want to move forward with this. Any other suggestions that from the board on what we need to modify or clarify out of this document?
Mayor Williams, I think that's a good suggestion. I would like to say Rob and his committee did a lot of work on this, and I went to their meetings and enjoyed the discussions. I think I agree with Mayor Salka, though, totally about we need to do this. But if we come back in 2 months, then I'd like for us to make a decision one way or the other, because they have already invested a lot of time and work in this.
Okay, and that will require each of us, of our jurisdictions, to, again, take the temperature of your councils and to see, obviously you're not going to take a vote, but at least know give us some indication that you're for or against moving forward or being part of it. Because there's 8 jurisdictions or 9 that, you know, we've moved forward with the stormwater with 6, you know, so there's, if there are 6 of the 9, then perhaps those 6 want to go forward. Okay, thank you. That was a good discussion. And again, Rob, thank you very much for all the work that you and your committee put forth on this document. Now, speaking of taking temperature and deciding what we want to do, although, again, there's no time, we have some time here. The third item on the agenda is to discuss the tri-share resolution proposed by the Child Care Subcommittee. And again, in fairness to that subcommittee, I think at some point we owe them an answer. Hardeeville did pass the resolution, and our council did discuss without any final decision that we would be willing to be, I don't want to use the word guinea pig, but we would certainly would be interested in being a test case if that's what the group wanted to do. So what I'd like to know from the jurisdictions, has anyone else passed this?
Yes, City of Beaufort has passed.
Beaufort has?
Yes.
Anyone else?
Mayor, I'll just
Port Royal has?
let you know that we have not had a chance to bring it forward yet due to some other issues that have come around. We've
Well,
actually
you've had nothing to do.
we've had to take some things off the agenda to address some other items, so this has not made it there yet.
Mayor, for what it's worth, I think Steve and Steve Bluffton indicated they were going to take it up as soon as they had their budget wrapped up.
Okay.
Mayor Williams, we want the committee to come and do a presentation to all of council before we take actions. It's not, we haven't said yes or no, but the majority of council wants to hear the presentation before we make a decision.
We did the same, and before we passed the resolution, the committee came in and explained what tri-share was, and then we took a vote on the resolution. Beaufort, Jasper County, have we any?
Mayor Williams, Beaufort County's been dealing with B&B, bridges and budget. So as soon as we're done with that, we'll have to have a presentation to full council. And Tab's nodding her head, so.
Yeah.
Beaches and budgets, I built it.
Yeah.
3 bridges.
I had a different one when I was in college, but I won't go into that one. Okay. Okay.
I only imagine.
In my big mouth. Okay, anyone else? Oh, so we have Beaufort, Port Royal, and Hardeeville. So why don't I suggest that if in 2 months we'll come back with some updates from everybody on where you want to go forward, because at that point we still, if we do adopt a resolution, a joint resolution of tri-share, then the next stage of that would be to try to get it included in the state budget, because 1/3 of that sharing we want to come from state funds. That's the proposal. So we have, if we adopt a resolution, we want to get other municipalities, other jurisdictions involved in advocating to the state to adopt this, at least for our region, but perhaps on a statewide basis. Okay, anybody want to add to that? All right, we have one last item, and that is the agenda for next month. Do we have, I have nothing from previous discussions on tap for next month. Are there any suggestions from the board? Yes.
I would like for us to entertain the hurricane preparedness evacuation plan.
That certainly would be timely. And, Mr. Hamilton, who would you suggest would be the best person to give that presentation?
And would.
No.
Oh, boy.
I'm just-
Boy, did you feel the wheels of the bus go over you, Dan?
Conjunction with the Beaufort County Sheriff's Office and the Jasper County.
Beaufort County.
Because they're the ones that, doesn't matter what we say, they are the ones that run the show.
Emergency management.
So,
I think, and Councilwoman Guzman, that's who, your event over at, is run by the sheriffs also?
No, it's a group of private citizens that got together and put in a team to educate Hilton Head Lakes folks, and now we've incorporated Margaritaville because we're meeting at the same intersection. So on June 21st, we'll have different local agencies who will be there to tell people what to do in the event we have to evacuate and how to prepare, so.
So if you could perhaps give me the participants there, maybe we could, because I think both sheriffs were invited to that.
Yes, Chief Woodward and Sheriff Malfros will be there. We're also having Jasper County EMS and Hardyville Fire. We're having folks from Beaufort Jasper Water. We're having the gas company come in. We have several local agencies that are responsible for our safety during a hurricane. But I will give you the complete list.
Okay, that
after
might be
the
a little
meeting.
too broad for this forum, but both the sheriffs and emergency management, EOC? Okay.
And we also have the state police that come too.
I think if we put that together, that's probably an hour's worth, don't you think? That's a good suggestion, Mr. Hamilton, thank you. Anyone else? Is everybody in favor of that?
Yeah.
Okay. Any nays to that? Then that's a good way to end this meeting today. Thank you all for attending, and I think we had some great conversations, and I really appreciate everybody coming.
just one more comment.
Sure, please. Before you go, wait, we're not done.
I'm just sitting there thinking, I didn't mean to come across like Bluffton is too cheap to pay our portion of a study or any of
That's
that.
exactly the way you came across.
Well, trying to just make sense of everything we do, because if you spend money and you just spent money and you keep spending money, then you won't have money to do the very jobs that the study is going to tell you that you need to do. I just would like to bring up the fact that 92 or 3, whatever it is, % of the town of Bluffton is already in development agreements. It's not hard to tell what's coming to Bluffton. When, possibly, whether it's going to take 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. But what is actually coming to Bluffton is carved in stone, signed development agreements. We, how changing anything in that is, especially to make it less development. So I would think it'd be very important to look at the different areas, whether it's unincorporated Beaufort County, Jasper County, the city of Hardyville. Look what's out there that possibly could be developed, because there's a lot of unknowns. You know what your development agreements say and allow as far as density and what type of zoning. But look at the entire region on a map and say, oh, we don't know what's coming here, we don't know what's coming there. And take that into consideration as, that what needs to be changed, whether it's different zoning, whether it's restrictions, whether it's purchasing critical areas. Because the actual town of Bluffton is pretty much carved out. We know where we are, what's coming, what can come, and we're actively working diligently and spending money to try to take off some of the stuff that we know could come, just because we know we've got plenty already obligated. So if you understand what I'm saying, looking at
No.
the map and seeing what the real unknowns are, is very, very important as we move forward and try to come up with a solution to make the 20 years from now better, or protecting what we have.
Thank you. And that's another reason why, as we gave our task out, those suggestions, let's put that into the final document and along with the cost-sharing formula as well. Because those are good comments. And Hardyville's the same way. All our land mass is under development agreements, basically. So, but, what else can we learn? How can we learn to manage the growth better, wisely, and with all the objectives in mind? And so it's good comments, good meeting today. And again, thank you. Now you can stand up. Unless anybody else wants to stop you. Okay.
See you later.